They came to the war front battered, disillusioned, and called those 3 women expendable. But one scarred alien veteran begged the doom-minded commanders, "Don't kill these 3 women." He saw something they didn't: raw, fierce hope. What happened next would change the fate of the Galactic Empire forever. Smash that subscribe button if you believe in hope, in humanity, and leave a comment if you're ready for a fight. They said the frontier had died years ago, but the truth was crueler. It was still alive, just barely, breathing in ragged gasps through broken cities and hollow-eyed survivors who clung to ruins simply because they had nowhere else to go. The wind carried the taste of metal and ash, drifting between shattered towers that once glowed with human life. Now they were only monuments to despair. The alien patrols marched through the wreckage like they owned the silence. Their boots struck iron shards and bone fragments with equal indifference. Every hour, another house was searched, another survivor dragged out, another scream swallowed by the dust. The Empire didn't care who lived or died on this forgotten world. They considered it a loose thread in their cloak of dominance, something to be trimmed, not repaired. 3 women had somehow slipped through the cracks of their purge. They weren't warriors. They weren't rebels. They were simply alive, and for the Empire, that was enough to condemn them. The first was a medic whose hands still shook from memories of treating patients even as the hospitals collapsed around her. Her once steady fingers trembled now only because she hadn't eaten in 2 days. The second was an engineer with a mind sharper than any blade but weighed down by the guilt of watching the machines she built fall into enemy hands. The third was the quiet one, small, swift, and ghost-like. She understood shadows better than people and moved through the ruins as if born from them. They hid together in what was left of an underground tram station. The platform was a pit of rubble, twisted rails, dried blood, and a collapsed roof that leaked slow drips of murky water. They huddled among the metal ribs of a fallen support beam, clutching what little food they'd scavenged. Above them, unseen but always felt, the alien soldiers carried out the latest order: full purge. The Empire wanted this world cleansed. Not conquered, emptied. A war veteran of the alien ranks watched all of this with the exhaustion of someone who had lived too long and seen too much. His scars ran deeper than flesh. His armor was cracked, his eyes dulled by grief. And despite the insignia marking him as a decorated survivor of countless campaigns, he felt hollow each time he looked at the cruelty his own people carried out. He had spotted the 3 women a week ago. At first, he assumed they were stragglers soon to be caught and eliminated. But something stopped him from calling it in. Maybe it was the way the medic shielded the other 2 with her thin body whenever distant footsteps echoed. Maybe it was the determined fire behind the engineer's tired eyes. Or maybe it was the quiet girl's ability to disappear between breaths, as if survival had carved her from the bones of the planet itself. They didn't act like victims, even when cornered by fate. They acted like hope. He hadn't seen hope in years. So he watched from afar. When he found leftover ration packs, he left them where he knew they'd look. When patrols came close, he diverted them with false sightings. He never revealed himself. He wasn't sure why. Maybe shame. Maybe fear. Maybe the knowledge that even speaking to them could get them killed. But their existence mattered to him in a way he couldn't explain. When the purge order was announced that morning, cold, dismissive, absolute, something inside the veteran buckled. The commander read the words from a holographic screen, voice flat as stone. All remaining humans on this world are to be terminated. No exceptions. The soldiers around him didn't flinch. They had done this before. They would do it again. To them, it was just another task, another line in the long scroll of the Empire's expanding cruelty. But to him, it was a knife twisting in a wound that had never healed. He stepped out of formation without permission. His superior regarded him with annoyance. War veteran or not, you follow orders. He wanted to argue right then, scream that enough was enough, that these women didn't deserve to die. But he swallowed the words. Not yet. Not there. Later, as he walked through the ruins alone, the weight of the order pressed deeper. He knew what would happen once the purge units moved deeper into the underground tunnels. The 3 women had nowhere left to run. The Empire would find them. They would die silently, unnamed, unhonored, unremembered. His steps carried him, without permission from his mind, to the broken stairwell leading down into the old tram station. He stayed in the shadows, listening. He heard the women whispering, arguing whether it was safe to move to a new hiding place. Their voices trembled, not with weakness, but with exhaustion. Every breath they took was a battle. Every decision felt like choosing between different kinds of death. He clenched his jaw until it hurt. They didn't know he was there, watching. They didn't know an army was coming for them. They didn't know the purge would begin at dawn. A sudden crash echoed above, patrols setting charges to collapse one of the survivor tunnels. Dust rained down through cracks in the station ceiling. The three women froze, clutching each other. The quiet one squeezed her eyes shut. The medic whispered something like a prayer. The engineer held a broken metal pipe as if it could help. All three of them looked like they had nothing left to give. But the veteran saw something else, something fierce, something burning, something the Empire feared more than weapons. Humanity's refusal to die quietly. He stepped back into the shadows, heart pounding, mind racing. He couldn't go to his barracks. He couldn't return to formation. He couldn't pretend he hadn't seen the fear in their eyes. And he definitely couldn't obey the purge order. As he turned away, he whispered something he hadn't said in years, words spoken not as a soldier, but as someone clinging to a fragment of his soul. Don't kill these three women. It was a warning, a plea, a quiet declaration of war. The Empire would ignore it. But he wouldn't. The barracks smelled of metal polish and cold air, a sharp contrast to the ash-filled ruins outside. Soldiers moved with mechanical precision, adjusting armor plates, loading power cells, checking weapons for the purge set at dawn. Their expressions were blank, hardened by orders and obedience. Only one pair of eyes in the room carried something different, something fractured, something haunted. The war veteran stood at the edge of the room, staring at his reflection in a dented metal locker. He didn't see the decorated soldier the Empire honored. He saw a man who had survived too many battles by shutting down the part of himself that cared. He saw visions of past purges, innocent faces, firelight reflecting in terrified eyes, screams he could never forget. Every memory struck him now with the force of a blow. He couldn't let it happen again. Not to those women. A command chime echoed through the barracks. Officers strode in, their cloaks trailing behind them like dark waves. One read the purge briefing with the same tone someone might use to describe weather conditions. All civilian remnants will be eliminated. Local structures may be destroyed. Resistance groups will be neutralized. Failure to comply will be treated as treason. The soldiers nodded. A few murmured approval. No one questioned. The veteran felt a wall closing in around him. He stepped forward before he had time to reconsider. A ripple went through the room as heads turned. No one interrupted. He was, after all, a legend among them, a survivor of campaigns entire platoons had been lost in. He had earned the right to speak. But they didn't expect him to. He didn't expect himself to. "Commander," he said quietly, "the purge order is unnecessary. There are civilians who pose no threat. We can relocate them. Spare them." A few soldiers exchanged confused looks. Some frowned. The commander didn't even lift his gaze from the holographic map. "The Empire doesn't relocate insects. It crushes them. Your sentimentality is noted and dismissed." The words hit like a hammer. But the veteran didn't step back. "I'm not speaking out of sentiment," he pressed. "Those women." That made the commander look up. His eyes narrowed, flicking with suspicion. "Women. You've encountered survivors without reporting them." The room's energy shifted. Silence thickened. The veteran's pulse throbbed in his temples. He had crossed a line he could never uncross. "I have observed them," he said, forcing steadiness into his voice. "They are harmless. One is a medic. One an engineer. The youngest is barely more than a child. Killing them serves no purpose. They're not rebels." The commander snorted. "They're human, aren't they? That alone is purpose. Humans rebuild. Humans resist. Humans ignite rebellions like sparks in dry leaves. If even one survives, this planet becomes a fire again." The veteran clenched his fists. "They're starving. Frightened. Unarmed. They won't resist anything. You don't know humans, the commander said coldly. They always resist. A murmur of agreement passed through the room. The veteran felt heat rising through his chest. If you spare them, they could help. A medic is valuable. An engineer could repair our equipment. Why waste useful hands? The commander let out a humorless laugh. Useful? Humans are only useful as warnings. Their deaths remind others what happens when the Empire is challenged. He moved closer, armor plates clinking. Why are you so concerned with these three? Since when do you question my orders? The veteran held his ground. Since I realized that some lines should not be crossed. That line, the commander hissed, was crossed the first day you fought under this banner. Spare your conscience. Execute the order. The soldiers around them watched, unsure whether to intervene. The veteran spoke one more time, voice low, strained, pleading but resolute. Don't kill those women. I'm telling you, they don't deserve it. Let them live. The commander leaned forward, eyes blazing with disdain. Your warning is irrelevant. The purge will happen. If you interfere, you will join them. Those words carved themselves into the veteran's mind. The commander turned away. The discussion was over for him. But for the veteran, something had broken. A trust. A tether. A sense of belonging he'd clung to out of habit, not loyalty. The briefing ended. Soldiers dispersed. But whispers followed him like shadows. He questioned the command. He's losing it. He's been soft since the last campaign. He's dangerous. He walked past them all with rigid steps, but inside, his thoughts spiraled. He remembered his first deployment, when he had believed in protection, in justice, in the Empire's promise of order. He remembered the day he realized the Empire didn't protect, only consumed. He remembered villages burned, refugees executed, children trampled beneath war machines. He remembered being told to move on, to forget, to fight harder. He hadn't forgotten. He wished he had. He reached the armory automatically. Soldiers were collecting disruptors and explosives. He took his standard-issue rifle, his blade, his armor, out of habit more than purpose. He didn't know what he was going to do. Not yet. He only knew what he couldn't do. He couldn't participate in what was coming. As he checked the seals on his armor, a younger soldier approached cautiously. Sir, I heard what happened. If you've seen survivors, you should have reported them. Orders are orders. The veteran didn't look at him. You've never seen a purge. The young soldier hesitated. I've seen battle. Battle is mercy, the veteran murmured. Purge is slaughter. The soldier fell silent. The veteran placed his helmet under his arm and walked out. Every step brought the weight of choice crashing down on him. He had always followed the Empire. He had always convinced himself he didn't have another path. But those three women, the medic protecting the others with her last breath, the engineer clutching scraps of machinery like hope itself, the silent girl who moved like a shadow that refused to die, had changed something in him. They represented what he had forgotten existed. Compassion. Resilience. Innocence. Humanity. As he reached the dark corridor leading toward the surface, he paused. The ruins outside whispered with cold wind. Distant explosions shook dust from the ceiling. Somewhere out there, the women were likely still huddled together, unaware that death marched toward them. The purge units would begin their sweep soon. He inhaled once, deeply. His voice came out as a whisper, not meant for anyone but himself. I won't let them die. The words were a vow. A betrayal. A beginning. He stepped into the wind. The Empire had given its orders. But he had made his choice. And nothing in the galaxy was going to stop him. Night settled over the ruins like a bruise spreading across the sky, swallowing every broken tower and shattered street in shadow. The purge squads moved through the darkness with glowing visors and humming rifles, scanning alleys and collapsed buildings with cold efficiency. Their footsteps echoed like the ticking of a clock, counting down the final minutes of anyone still alive. The medic, the engineer, and the quiet girl heard the rhythmic march long before they saw the patrol lights. The medic's breathing quickened as she pressed her ear to the cracked tunnel wall. The engineer clenched the bent metal pipe in her hands, her knuckles pale from fear. The quiet girl didn't speak. She simply listened, eyes darting toward every vibration in the floor, her instincts sharper than the others. They knew the purge had begun. They could feel it in the air. Heavy, electric, final. But they didn't know one thing. The alien war veteran was already racing toward them, long strides cutting through debris as he moved through sublevels only soldiers knew existed. The wind tore at him, dust slicing across his armor, but he didn't slow. He didn't allow fear or doubt to return. He had made his choice, and every pulse of his heart fueled the urgency driving him. The Empire could call him traitor if they wished. Let them. Saving these women had become the only thing that mattered. The tunnels ahead glowed with faint orange light, purge teams placing incendiary charges. Once detonated, the underground network would collapse, sealing off survivors and suffocating anyone hiding within. The veterans had seen such collapses before. They left no bodies. Only dust. He arrived seconds before a group of soldiers rounded the corner. His training took over, silent steps, controlled breathing, perfect timing. He ducked behind a fallen pillar, scanning their equipment. They carried scanners tuned to detect heat signatures. The women's hiding place wouldn't remain secret long. One of the soldiers knelt to activate a drone sphere. Once released, it would drift through the tunnels, mapping every heartbeat within 100 meters. The veteran moved. He stepped out behind them like a shadow peeling away from stone. A swift strike to the nearest soldier's throat dropped him without a sound. His other hand snapped forward, catching the drone sphere before it activated. He crushed it silently and let the shards fall at his feet. The remaining two soldiers whirled in confusion, but he had already seized the first by the helmet and slammed him into the wall. The second raised his rifle too slowly. The veteran removed the magazine with a twist of the weapon and sent him unconscious with the butt of his blade handle. 3 bodies lay quiet on the ground. He dragged them behind debris, not to hide the act, but to delay discovery long enough to reach the survivors. Every second counted. The medic felt faint tremors through the floor. She pulled the engineer and quiet girl closer. "They're almost above us," she whispered. "If we stay here, we're dead." "Where do we go?" the engineer breathed. "Every exit leads to a patrol." The quiet girl pointed toward the far end of the platform, where a narrow tunnel sloped into deeper darkness. It was unstable and half flood damaged, but still passable if they crawled. The medic shook her head. "That tunnel leads to the central filtration shaft. If the purge units have reached it, it's a trap." "They'll reach here first," the engineer replied. "We need to move." The medic wanted to argue, but she saw the panic in the girl's eyes, the same panic she'd seen in patients whose lives slipped through her fingers. She relented. "Fine. But stay close. No noise." They crawled. The tunnel was tight and coated in grime that scraped their skin. The medic helped the girl through narrow gaps while the engineer pushed aside debris. They made it only a few meters before they heard footsteps approaching from behind. Slow, deliberate, systematic. Purge squad. The medic's heart pounded. The engineer's grip tightened. The quiet girl covered her mouth to muffle her breathing. They froze in pitch darkness, waiting for death. But the veteran reached the station first. He leapt down onto the lower platform, scanning desperately for any sign of movement. Fresh footprints in the dust. 3 sets. Small, hurried, frantic. They led toward the narrow tunnel, toward the filtration shaft. A wave of dread washed over him. If the women reached that shaft before he did, they would walk straight into a kill zone. He sprinted. Every muscle in his body burned. His armor scraped against jagged concrete. He ignored the pain, pushing faster. Behind him, he heard distant shouts, soldiers discovering the unconscious bodies he'd left behind. Access lights blinked red as new search orders spread through the squad networks. He didn't slow. He dropped into a crouch and slipped into the narrow tunnel, shoulders scraping stone walls. The air was damp, stale, suffocating. But he could hear faint movement ahead, shuffling, labored breaths, the quiet girl's nearly silent whimper. He called out softly, risking everything. "Stop. Don't go further. It's not safe." The women froze. They recognized the voice, not because they'd met him, but because it had whispered warnings for days, guiding them from danger without explanation. The medic's eyes widened in the darkness. The engineer's breath hitched. The quiet girl turned toward the sound. He crawled closer until the faint glow of his visor reached them. For a moment, no one moved. The medic was the first to speak. You helped us." He nodded once. "And I'm here to do it again. You're heading toward an ambush. The Empire is collapsing the filtration shaft. If you go through, you'll die." The engineer's voice cracked with exhaustion. "Then where do we go? Everything is death." "No," he said firmly. "Not if you follow me." The quiet girl stared at him with wide, hollow eyes. "Why help us?" she whispered. He hesitated. No soldier in the Empire asked such a question. No soldier admitted an answer. "Because you're alive," he said finally. "And because they don't want you to be." For the first time, the medic felt a tiny spark of hope ignite beneath her fear. He motioned for them to follow. They crawled back through the narrow tunnel, guided by the glow of his visor. When they reached the station again, purge lights flashed in the distance, search beams cutting through dust and darkness. The women froze. The medic clutched the girl protectively. The engineer raised the metal pipe again despite its uselessness. The veteran lifted his rifle and stood between them and the incoming patrol. "They'll reach this platform in less than a minute," he said. "Stay behind me. Don't run. Don't speak." The medic swallowed hard. "You'll be killed helping us." "Maybe," he answered. "But not before I make them regret it." The glow of approaching soldiers grew brighter. The Empire had found them. But for the first time, the women were not alone. And the veteran was done running. They dragged the 3 human women into the Empire's judgment hall, now reeking of molten metal, fractured stone, and the lingering ozone of the recorded execution that had been paused on the great hollow display. Every alien official in the chamber waited with a mix of dread and denial, trying to understand how 3 unarmed human prisoners had just rewritten the Empire's concept of danger. The High Marshal himself had ordered that they be studied, interrogated, and broken. But as the women were forced across the floor, the guards kept a distance they had never kept from any prisoner before, because they had seen the footage. They had seen what these 3 could do even while suppressed, even while drugged, even while bound. And somewhere inside every armored chest, a pulse of fear began to grow. Sarah walked with steady breath, her face calm, eyes unreadable. Lena kept her gaze low, but her hands flexed subtly, testing every restraint, timing the pattern of the guards' footfalls. Mira looked around with quiet curiosity, analyzing exits, angles, acoustics, vibration patterns, filing every detail away with the cold logic of a strategist born for war. All 3 were exhausted, bruised, and injured. But none looked defeated. Humans seldom did. The Empire's judgment hall was designed to intimidate, towering black pylons, ceilings so high they vanished into darkness, and a throne made of living stone that pulsed in sync with the High Marshal's heartbeat. But today, intimidation faltered. The Marshal's elites, the feared Targoth enforcers, stood positioned along the perimeter, yet their armor trembled at micro-vibrational frequencies, betraying the fear they fought to hide. The Marshal rose. "Humans," he thundered, "you stand accused of destabilizing a sovereign empire. You will now tell us how you performed these acts of—" Mira interrupted him with a soft, almost bored, "You already know you can't control us." A ripple went through the hall. Interrupting the Marshal was unheard of, punishable by instant death. Yet the Marshal did not strike. He hesitated, and the entire room saw that hesitation. Sarah's lips curved. Lena's fingers flexed again. The Marshal forced his voice steady. "Your abilities, your combat variants, your resistance to neural suppression, all of it must be catalogued." "Catalogued?" Sarah echoed, "like animals?" "You misunderstand," the Marshal said. "Your species is evolving beyond predicted parameters. We must determine how dangerous." "You already know," Lena murmured. "That's why you dragged us here instead of killing us. Your veterans warned you. Don't kill these 3 women. You ignored them. But you heard enough to wonder what made us different." A deep silence settled over the hall. Then Mira said something that froze every throat. "Bring out your scientists." The Marshal blinked. "What?" The Marshal glared. "Are you telling me these 3 are unstoppable?" I'm telling you, the veteran said, that you've already lost. The marshal's face twisted with fury. Enough. They are human women, nothing more. Mira whispered, and that is your final mistake. Every restraint in the hall snapped. Not through strength alone. Not through rage alone. But through calculation, perfect timing, shared instinct, the invisible bond between humans who refused to die. For the first time, the Galactic Empire saw what a united trio of human women truly was. And fear finally bloomed in full. You want to understand humans, Mira said. So bring them. All of them. Your biologists, your strategists, your mind-menders. Bring them. Whispers exploded through the hall. Why would she invite scrutiny? Why would she call for more alien eyes? Why would she willingly expose more information? Because humans were dangerous in ways the Empire did not yet understand. The Marshal gestured, and the room filled with the Empire's brightest minds. They surrounded the three humans cautiously, projectors and scanners humming to life. They scanned brain activity, muscular reaction, stress responses, but every readout returned errors, anomalies, impossibilities. Lena's muscle fiber analysis broke 3 different scanners. Sarah's neural reading overloaded a mind-mapping device, frying its circuits as though she had rejected it. Myra's cognitive map showed simultaneous logical, emotional, and instinctual reasoning, an impossible tri-processing pattern that no known species possessed. One scientist whispered in terror, "They are adapting while being measured." Another stammered, "That can't be right. The readings say they're learning how the devices work, while inside them." Sarah smiled faintly. "Now you're beginning to understand." A strategist stepped forward. "Explain yourselves. What are you?" "Human," Mira said. "Just human. But we trained. We survived. We sacrificed. And you made the mistake of threatening the last thing we have left." The Marshal leaned forward. "And what would that be?" Sarah's voice turned ice-cold. "Each other." The strategist barked, "But how did you overpower energy restraints earlier? How did you break suppression fields meant to incapacitate entire armies?" Lena tilted her head. "Do you know what adrenaline does to a human mother? Do you know what determination does to a human soldier? Do you know what loss does to a human heart?" The strategist faltered. Lena continued, "Your machines don't understand purpose. They don't understand love. They don't understand fury forged through grief. They don't understand why a human will tear their own body apart to protect someone else." A scientist whispered, "But your strength levels, your reactions, your tactical awareness, are not normal baseline human." "No," Sarah agreed. "Human baseline isn't what you think it is." "And none of us are baseline," Mira added softly. "We are 3 women pushed past every threshold, through war, through loss, through trials your empire cannot imagine. You executed one human to send a message. Instead, you created us." The Marshal clenched his jaw. "You are still prisoners." "No," Mira corrected. "We're studying you." The Marshal bristled. "Studying us?" Lena gestured around the room with her chin. "Every word you say, every weapon you carry, every formation your guards take, we've already mapped it." Sarah whispered, "We know your escape routes. Your blind spots. The frequency your suppression fields fail at. The neural lag your enforcers suffer when ordered to fire." A chilling realization spread across the hall. They weren't being interrogated. They were gathering data. The Marshal snarled, "If you attempt to escape, we will kill you." Sarah stepped closer, not fast, not threatening, just close enough for every guard to tense. "You've already tried to kill us," she said calmly. "You failed." The Marshal lifted a hand, about to order the execution. Every guard raised their rifles. Every scientist shrank back. Every Targath enforcer braced for combat. And then Mira quietly said, "Before you give that order, ask your veterans why they begged you not to kill us." A deep, aged voice echoed from the doorway. "Because these 3 women carry the same aura as the Ghostfire Division." Every alien turned. A veteran, battered armor, missing mandibles, scarred chest, limped into the hall. His presence alone carried weight heavier than the Marshal's authority. He stared at the women with haunted recognition. "I've seen this before," the veteran whispered. "In the siege of Veros 9. In the tunnels of Erida Prime. In the ruins of the Fallen Belt. Humans pushed past breaking point. Humans who've lost everything. Humans fighting for blood and memory. You can torture them, cage them, beat them, starve them. They only get more dangerous. Because grief turns humans into something else." The restraints shattered like brittle glass beneath invisible pressure, fragments clattering across the judgment hall as every alien in the chamber lurched backward in terror. The three human women did not roar, did not charge, did not unleash chaos with mindless fury. They simply stood straighter, their breaths synchronizing in a calm, controlled rhythm that felt impossibly more threatening than any scream could have. True danger was silent. True danger was deliberate. These women were both. The High Marshal tried to shout an order, but his voice cracked. His soldiers did not move. Their instincts screamed louder than any command. They could not approach. Every guard, every scientist, every strategist in the hall felt the same primordially foreign sensation. Prey realizing the predator is already in striking range. Mira stepped forward. Not fast. Not aggressive. Yet every enforcer jolted as though she had teleported. She walked with quiet confidence, her posture balanced, her hands loose at her sides. She knew exactly how fear worked in alien physiology, and she used it without malice, only precision. Sarah moved next, brushing dust from her wrists as though waking from a nap rather than breaking out of military-grade restraints. Her gaze skimmed across the hall, reading every tremor, every micro-flinch, every half-second hesitation. She filed them away like a surgeon cataloging organs before an operation. Lena didn't move at first. She simply inhaled, a slow, full breath, and every scanner in the hall began spiking once more, alarms flaring as her adrenaline, oxygen uptake, and muscular output surged past predicted limits. She rolled her shoulders. The sound alone made several soldiers raise their rifles again. The Marshal finally found his voice. "Fire! Fire! Take them down!" No one pulled a trigger. The enforcers' claws hovered over activation panels. Their mandibles trembled. Their grips slipped. A few of them took involuntary steps back, armor scraping against the polished stone floor, not because they were cowards, but because instinct outweighed discipline. Humans were not supposed to radiate this kind of threat while unarmed and exhausted. But these were not normal humans. These were three women made from wounds, sharpened by loss, fueled by bonds the Empire never understood. Sarah broke the silence. "You still don't get it," she said, her voice soft but carrying across the entire chamber. "We're not here to kill you." The relief on some faces was immediate, but Mira crushed it with a single sentence. "We're here to end you." The Marshal slammed a fist against his throne, triggering a defensive energy dome that encased him in glowing amber light. It flickered, stabilizing around his form with a crackling whine. "You will not threaten the Empire." Mira looked at him through the barrier. "Threaten? Marshal, we already outmaneuvered you hours ago." The room froze. "What are you talking about?" a strategist stammered. Sarah stepped beside Mira. "You thought you captured us. But we tested your patrol routes long before you realized we were on your soil. We let you bring us in. Let you lock us down. Let you gather every mind worth studying into one room." Lena moved now, finally stepping forward, and the sensors embedded in the floor screamed error again. Her presence wasn't supernatural. It was human biology pushed past its intended ceiling. "You want to know why?" Lena asked, her voice low, dangerous, steady. "Because humans don't start battles blind." The Marshal's voice shook. "This is impossible. Your species doesn't have this level of coordination, this level of planning, this level of determination." Sarah offered. "Sacrifice. Adaptation. You should have paid attention to your veterans." The old veteran, who had warned the Empire, limped toward the women, stopping several steps away. He didn't raise a weapon. He didn't tremble. He simply bowed his head. "I told them," he whispered. "I told them humans pushed past breaking point become something unstoppable. I saw it years ago. I knew it the moment I saw the fire in your eyes." Mira nodded to him, almost respectfully. You understood us better than your commanders ever did. The Marshal screamed, fists pounding the energy dome. End them! End them now! Why are you all just standing there? Lena didn't even glance at him. Because they know fighting us will only make it worse. One scientist dropped his scanner, voice cracking. What do you want? What will make you stop? Sarah answered with chilling calm. We want the Empire to understand what it created. Mira continued. We want every world you enslaved to see what you fear. Lena finished. And we want you to realize what killing one innocent human really costs. The Marshal snarled. You speak as though you've already won. Mira nodded. We have. At her signal, so small it was nearly invisible, the hall's lights flickered. The walls vibrated. Distant explosions echoed through the structure. A deep alarm, one meant only for catastrophic breaches, boomed through the capital city. The Empire's central power grid was collapsing. The Marshal stared at them in disbelief. What did you do? Sarah folded her arms. Humans don't fight with brute force alone. We use creativity, distraction, timing. Lena stepped forward until only a meter separated her from the Marshal's energy dome. While you poked us, your entire defense network was being unpicked by human engineers outside your notice. We're soldiers, Sarah said. We're tacticians, Mira said. But humans, Lena finished, are a species of problem solvers. And your empire is just one very big, very fragile problem. The alarms intensified. Reports flooded into the hall. Eastern shield collapsing. Unknown infiltrators inside the command tower. Docking bay compromised. Power conduit sabotage. Emergency failsafes offline. The Marshal's breathing sped up. This can't be happening. This can't. Mira leaned in, her voice quiet. You executed one human to intimidate us. Instead, you united us. Sarah added, and when humans unite, stars fall. Lena pressed her palm against the energy dome. Your empire ends today, not because we hate you, but because you forced us to become what you fear. The Marshal recoiled. You monsters. Mira shook her head. Monsters don't feel grief. Monsters don't fight for one another. You want to see a monster? Look in a mirror. We're just human. And that's enough. The energy dome flickered. The sabotage across the city weakened the power feeding it. Sparks jumped. Circuits whined. The Marshal panicked, slamming override after override to keep it active. But power failure is inevitable when an empire built on brutality finally meets a force built on loyalty. The dome collapsed. The Marshal froze as the three women stepped within arm's reach. None raised a weapon. None struck. None acted with cruelty. Instead, Sarah spoke with an eerie softness. We're giving you a choice your soldiers never had. Mira added, surrender your rule. Lena concluded, or humanity takes it from you. Silence. The hall trembled as distant detonations thundered again, human teams securing the last systems. Finally, the Marshal's shoulders sagged. Not with acceptance. Not with wisdom. With fear. I surrender, he whispered. The veteran closed his eyes. The guards lowered their weapons. Scientists collapsed in relief. Strategists bowed their heads. Humanity had done what no species ever had. 3 human women had toppled a galactic empire. Sarah exhaled slowly. Good. Mira turned toward the veteran. Help your people rebuild. Without cruelty. Without domination. If you don't, humanity will return. Lena finished, and next time, we won't show mercy. Together, the 3 women walked out of the hall, not as prisoners, not as victims, but as a force written into the Empire's history in letters carved from fire. Behind them, alien soldiers whispered a new name that would travel across the galaxy like a warning carried on starlight. The 3 who should never be killed. And every empire listened.